Hello and welcome to Makers.dev, episode number 66, where you get your kicks. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm great, and I've seen so much more of you over the last few weeks. It used to be that this podcast was like a special treat of like, ooh, it's my time to hang out with Chris and tell him what I've been working on. I know exactly what you worked on almost entirely this week. We've checked in like for at least 2 hours every workday. I feel like I know a lot about you, which is, it's interesting for the podcast because like there were a lot of interesting things that happened this last week that I don't think are interesting anymore because I already know them. So I feel like through the week I need to be keeping track of like, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about on the podcast. So for our listeners, what'd you do this week?
So same. Yeah, we saw a lot of each other. I also have completely forgotten or lost track of what I've told you already, like in co-working, and what I've told you on the podcast. So if I repeat things, sorry. Let's see, what did I get up to? I completed, so last podcast we talked about completing the MeetingPlace acquisition. So yeah, that's done. I got a mug that says I got Microaquired. So that was automatic swag that got sent out. That was nice. And yeah, that continues to go well. I still have a few ongoing meetings with him for a couple of months, basically to like help with the transition. But I'm not doing anything now. Like he has access to everything, control of everything. So I can talk about that a little bit more. I did. On the SaaS side, I've been working on what I think is my next. I'm going to call it a side project right now because I'm doing so many things. But it is the AcornChat, like the little intercom style chat widget that goes right to Slack. Part of the whole point was to build a Slack app and get it in the Slack app store just to like have experience in that whole thing. So I picked something like I knew that existed, and so that was a little chat widget. And I had a few ideas about. And then I did a lot of Kaggle stuff. A Kaggle competition is closing tomorrow, so I can talk about that and the frustrations of that. And then some of the driven data, the Snowwater competition is ongoing as well. So yeah, I did all those things. Oh, and machine learning homework, which is boring, so I won't talk about that, but I did machine learning homework.
I can see where you're calling the SaaS a side project. Okay, through that explanation, I was reminded of several things I want to dig into of cool things. First thing that I think I'm most curious about, congratulations on the Microaquired mug. That's very cool. Worth it almost to sell a SaaS company just to get that mug.
All right.
How are the ongoing conversations with the person you sold it to going? Have you had a conversation yet where he's like, this code is terrible and you suck and I can't believe I bought this and I want my money back? What do those calls look like?
No, so far he seems happy. He hasn't done Rails for a while. He's more on the JavaScript side, and so he's kind of relearning Rails. And so some of what we've talked about is just like me going through I purposely made the app like a pretty standard Rails app. So like I just went through all the different parts for that, and then we haven't talked that much except for a few back and forths with like. I think probably just about any time he's gotten a customer email, which is like 3 or 4 times, he sent them to me and just to check what I would do in that situation, So that, and then we're going to have a couple longer conversations. We have at least one scheduled to like after he looks at the app, he's going to probably have a bunch of questions. So he like pre-scheduled some time to like go over whatever questions he has about the actual code and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty light, like on purpose, like the what we agreed on is like, I'm not doing development for him in these couple of months. I'm doing basically just support for him and any weird customer things that come up. So, so far it's been pretty positive. If he regrets his decision, he hasn't communicated that. So, yeah, so far pretty good.
It sounds ideal. And this is so much more complicated than selling a car because you sell a car to someone and they're like, it's a car. I know how a car works. But with a SaaS, like it's so bespoke. It's so custom, even more like a building or a house. If you sell someone a house, they'll be like, I'll figure it out. Houses have air conditioning units, and you can hire people to do these things. But yeah, for software, it doesn't feel like we're quite there yet. There's no standard unit of like, it's an iPhone app, so I'm going to get this thing, and there's going to be these parts, and there's going to be this air conditioner part of it. And I understand how that works. There's a lot more spaghetti you could potentially get into in software of like, well, there's this really weird server that I made that runs this in completely different technology that's making this weird API call to this thing, and that's crucial for the entire app to work. So it sounds like your experience through this has been largely positive, that it's been as smooth as this could possibly be. But it has me curious now about like what might it look like if there was more of a standard unit of like, it's a WordPress plugin. I'm going to buy this, and I know that means it's going to be this thing, and the code's going to live here, and it's going to run this way, and it's going to be using these frameworks, and with the same sort of standardization that a car or a house would be. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think that would happen more for things like WordPress plugins or like maybe like Shopify stores. Like there's several like sort of drop shipping ish stuff, like e-commerce kind of things on Microaquired, and so those are probably way more standard. It's probably like, here's your list of customers, here's your list of providers, here's how they're connected, and then, there you go. It's so yeah, but wherever there's lots of custom code, yeah, it's pretty custom. And then on the other side, if it was a much bigger company like with employees that came along with the deal,
oh yeah,
then that's probably more like, here's the people who know about all these things, go ask them. And so
that's interesting. That might be more modular than if it's people involved. Well, okay, we have the people on the payroll and they know how this complicated thing works, so just move them over. Interesting. Huh. What a fun idea. How have you noticed the difference in how you're feeling day to day, having sold this versus previously? Is this a load off, and you feel like you didn't have much more bandwidth? Is this do you feel pangs of regret when you see good things happening in the app and new people being onboarded? And what's if you could characterize your overall feeling before and after, what would that be like?
Yeah, so far still positive. Like I said, it wasn't taking up that much of my time, but whenever I did something else, like whenever I worked on the AcornChat widget, I would be like, I should be spending this time on MeetingPlace instead. And now I no longer have that thing. So like, yeah, I'm being just freed up mentally a little bit. There was one, so I posted in like the MicroConf Slack thing, like I sold a company on Microaquired or whatever, and someone said, hey, I know your picture, you're the MeetingPlace guy. And I was like, I was. And so it's like, oh, I was the MeetingPlace guy. Oh. So that was the only thing that that was, so I guess it was tied to my identity a little bit, and I didn't even realize it, but
yeah.
But yeah, so far still good.
That would be weird. Like Patrick McKenzie was the Bingo card creator guy.
Yeah, then he sold it.
Now he's Patrick McKenzie,
Stripe.
Lots of other things guy. Yeah, he works at Stripe, and he's got the appointment reminder. I don't know if he sold that one too. Though.
Yeah, he sold that one too. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll forever attach those things to him, but yeah. I don't know. So I guess that'll forever be with your identity. Like you are the founder of MeetingPlace. But you can do other stuff too. Yeah, and that's true of other founders, right? Like Brian Castle, who we interviewed a couple weeks ago. He will forever be in my mind the audience ops guy, but he sold that a while ago. Yeah.
He sold like 5 or 6 things this year, I think. Or
did he really?
last year and a half? Yeah. He was talking about it on his podcast.
That's cool. That's a game I'd like to get more into. Okay, this is helping me a lot. Like just talk through seeing the whole process, and we've mentioned this a few times, but this is a scary process to me right now that has a lot of unknowns, and so seeing you every step of the way, caring that it's pretty manageable. There's no major pitfalls that you've walked into yet.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is I think I've had a very easy time of it. Like, it helps that I found a buyer who is like just a developer who really was excited about getting going. If you get into like a bad like M&A situation with a company who really wants to, dig their lawyers into you, then I could really see this going sideways. So yeah, I had a particularly good experience.
That's interesting. That's an advantage, I think, for having more smaller things. Like the bigger the things go, the more professional the people are that are going to be buying it, and then the more due diligence and the whole thing gets messier. Okay. Interesting. Well, cool. I'm really glad it's going well. What a for all the things you have going on right now, like it makes so much sense for you to be selling off this thing that I don't think you were getting enjoyment from. That it sounds like most of the feelings you felt towards it were guilt. So good solution.
Yeah, it was mostly guilt that I wasn't able to realize my initial vision, which is not helpful. So
yeah, cool. What's next? Let's dig into AcornChat, because this is the next thing that's taking the place of the SaaS part of your life. Specifically, something really interesting you said this week is that you hit a point where it felt boring. Like you forgot why this was a good thing that, that wants to exist. And it felt like you sort of just like lost the wind out of your sails. And like you were pushing forward and making meaningful progress. But I think you became less impressed with what this thing was and what it was doing. And I'd love to hear if you had more thoughts about that. And I'd like to dig into that a little more.
Yeah, that was a feeling I had like in the middle of the week. So I think anytime someone makes something, I think this probably happens where you're like, this thing is awesome. And then you kind of do it, or you're halfway through it and you're like, this is terrible. Like everything is broken and nothing is working.
Yeah.
And I sort of had, not quite to that extent, but yeah, I had those feelings this week. And so part of it was like, I was showing you my progress. Like, so we do these co-working sessions where we do a Pomodoro and then we just, tell each other what we've done. And I think you were sort of impressed because what you saw is I could type a thing in a widget in a website and it went to my Slack, and then I could apply in a thread and it went to the website. And it's kind of magic. Like it goes back and forth. It uses WebSockets.
Yeah.
But the magic is totally lost on me now. I'm like, yeah, it does that, but there's 20 other things that are broken.
Yeah.
And so the magic of the the chat widget to Slack is totally gone for me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I just need to keep pushing forward. And like once it's all a thing, I think maybe I'll feel a little better about it. But yeah, I was like, why am I even doing this? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, remind myself.
Yeah. I'm currently riding this wave of enthusiasm for FileInbox. It feels great. I'm gonna ride that out as long as I can, and I can relate so strongly to that feeling. I've been there on every project I've ever worked on. I've had this lull of like, well, what am I really doing here? Like, couldn't I just use this other thing to do this? And why would anyone actually want to use this? Like, this isn't doing anything special. And that's a feeling I'm very interested in because, like, as a person, I think I'm very high in enthusiasm, so I tend to be much more on the side of like, this is amazing, and people are like, what? This is just a bridge, Christian. Small side note: I've been obsessed recently with highway overpasses that overlap each other. I call it highway spaghetti. I don't know if it has a name, but in Texas there will be these interchanges of like 4 roads intersecting, and it's like a 5-layer thing. And something I've been obsessed with these since I was a kid, but something recently is just I've just started to see them as art. And I've started taking pictures of them, and I'm planning on like taking my drone out and taking some pictures like when the lighting's really good. So I'm using this as an example of like, I get really excited by this thing. It's very mundane. People look at it and they're like, okay, yeah, it's a highway overpass. Like you drive on it, and I'm like, oh my god, look at the light. Oh, it's so many layers. So that's my tendency. And in projects, I drift towards the other side of that tendency, which is like more. I don't have a good word for it. More depressive, less enthusiastic, where you're looking at things more critically and probably more realistically. But I don't know. Well, yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. This is a feeling that I've also felt, and I'm not sure the best way to counteract it. Or if it needs to be counteracted, like maybe this is a healthy thing that you're oscillating and able to feel out more of like, well, this is a chat app and it's solving this problem, and while that's cool on the more enthusiastic side, and that does feel magical when you're entering it on a website, also, like, is this actually a big problem that people are facing? Maybe it's useful to be able to swing on both sides of that and look at it more critically and then connect it with something deeper. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I haven't formulated this really, but I've had these thoughts before too. Like, this is one reason that developers are bad at marketing, because developers, when you're developing an app, I've thought critically about the 100 different ways that this chat thing can fail. Mm-hmm. And so, like, because I have to fix each one of those in code, and so all you can see is like the ways that it can fail. So for any app you develop, you have to do that, like all of the places where, things can break down. And so when you step back and look at it, all you see is that. And it's marketing, you kind of have to turn it around the other way and be like, look at all the magic that you can do,
Yeah.
So that's one reason, at least me, that I have trouble marketing things, is because I've seen all the ways it can fail. So
yeah, when you know the details of it, it's not magic anymore. But in marketing, you kind of do want to sell it as a magic solution of like, hey, you have this problem and I can solve it perfectly every time, even though in the back of your mind you're like, well, there's these 6 edge cases that I'm
right.
still not. And like, you're so far in the weeds of these edge cases as a customer. Do I really care that you don't handle the case where like 3 members of my team are on Do Not Disturb and a third one just went offline and the state of it isn't perfectly rendered with exactly what it should be immediately and doesn't like push the update to people that have the web page loaded already? Like, no, not really. Like, if it does something reasonable in that case, like, that's fine. And even if it doesn't render at all in 1 out of 100 cases, I don't really care. It's still accomplishing the thing that I'm trying to accomplish. But like, that, and that's
right.
what you're laser focused on. So that's in the back of your mind. You sort of, I say you meaning like both of us, we both have the tendency, but we're so focused on the details that we've lost sight of the big picture of like, okay, the core thing this is doing is solving a very important problem for people who have a website. They're able to contact you in your form on your website and get immediate feedback through Slack because the person who has this website already lives in Slack and it works for your whole team. That is a core value proposition, is really valuable and cool. So maybe the thing to get out of this mindset is to talk more to customers, just to like re-sync yourself with, oh yeah, these are the things this person cares about. They care a lot more about can they upload their logo in this thing than they do about does it handle these specific edge cases of when I'm offline or on Do Not Disturb. Okay, that feels about right. Well, who's the next customer you're going to talk to? How's that going to happen?
I have no customers, so I better talk to somebody.
Just someone experiencing this problem, doing like a deploy empathy style interview.
So one reason I wanted to get this sort of at least done before, like to a point where I knew all the edge cases before MicroConf, is because MicroConf is full of people who have chat widgets on their website. I can sort of bring it up with them. Not like I'm trying to sell it to them, but I can ask them about their, how they do that, how they handle that case. I would bet something like probably half the people at MicroConf have a chat widget on their website, or at least did at one point. So I'm doing that in a couple weeks. I think that would be a super useful, talking to people, like practice. The other thing you said was about the core idea. So I came to this point too, after talking to you like during this week, like all of these edge cases, I should only fix them before I launch if it impacts like the core, like what is this thing actually trying to do? And so like, what do the people who are going to buy it care about? They care about their customer actually being able to talk to them. Like the worst case scenario is if, one of the worst case scenarios is if like their customer thinks they're talking to them, but like the messages don't get through. Like that'd be really bad for them because now they look unresponsive to their customer through no fault of their own. Like it'd be better if it just didn't render anything at all, like you said. So basically I'm fixing all the edge cases where if a customer types something and it doesn't get to the Slack instance, or if someone in Slack types something and it doesn't get to the customer, like I'm fixing all of that connection, and then everything else, it's gravy.
Okay, that's reasonable. That would be bad if a customer tried to message me and it seemed like I should be immediately responding and I wasn't. That makes sense. Okay, I love also using MicroConf as a way to talk to customers because you're right. That is the customer that would be using this. It's like people who have SaaS apps who want that live chat thing at their website who also use Slack. Okay, yeah, that's going to be a really good way to be having those conversations. Sounds like we need to reread Deploy Empathy before going to
probably.
Cool. Neat. I would love to check in with what the development roadmap looks like for AcornChat. We've been talking a lot about like the roadmap for each individual day of what you're doing to push it forward. What would you like to get done before MicroConf, and what are the intermediate steps to get there? MicroConf, by the way, in 18 days. So what do you want to get done in the next 18 days?
All right. Yeah, 18 days. So this is the stuff I thought I was going to get done in the first week, and we talked about how expectations completely got pushed up. So there are some still edge cases where if a person logs in or off at the wrong time or deletes a thread or whatever, then messages will not get synced between, the database and Slack. So I want to fix those because that's like the core thing. So there are some of those edge cases. I do want customization. So to be able to change the colors and the logo and stuff, I think that's an important part. And then I want to add documentation about what the thing actually does. Not like full on documentation, but some marketing example, like just flesh out the marketing page and stuff. And then after those three things are done, then I can put it in the Slack App Store. So then people could actually buy it and stuff. And so that's what I want to have done before MicroConf.
Cool. I heard polish out a few more edge cases, documentation, write the documentation pages, write a marketing, or you already have a marketing page. I guess polish the marketing page.
I have a single page which sort of says what it does. Okay. So I want like an actual like page which says what it does. Yeah.
Okay. I'd love a video there, showing what the thing was. And and then once those three things are done, actually put it in the Slack App Store. Is that right?
Yeah. Plus customization. I have some stubs out for like just changing the color and the icon and like the like if you want to put a logo in, maybe not even logo, and just color and icon, and like what does it say? Right now it just says, how can we help? Or something like that. But that seems like people will want to change that. So
cool.
Yeah.
If you'd be game, I'd love to push you on this a little further and do like a backwards plan for each of these things, how long each would take. Are you down for that?
Yeah, the customization should take probably a day, 4 POMs.
Okay.
The documentation could take as long as I wanted. The documentation plus the marketing site. So I should probably limit that. Like if we say like a week, then that'll probably give me enough time to get everything I want. It does work, so I could probably also spend as much time as I wanted chasing edge cases. So I should probably limit that, say to like the 4 days of the week, maybe. Yeah, 2 or 3 days worth of POMs, let's say, on edge cases.
Okay.
And then 2 or 3 days to figure out how to get it in the App Store. What's that? That's 2 weeks, right?
I think so. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 work days? Is that right? Yeah. We have 14 work days left. So you said 2 to 3 days for edge cases, a week for documentation and marketing, a day for customization, and then Slack App Store, whatever's left.
Yeah. And I think getting into Slack App Store takes some time, so I should probably cut that documentation and marketing site down to like maybe 2 days.
Okay.
And then I can always change it later, right? So I should probably submit to the App Store well before, like, because I think you can submit it but not push it live yet or something. See, I don't even know. So I need to spend at least 1 POM figuring out all the Slack App Store stuff.
Okay. So we'll say in 10 working days you want it submitted the first time, because that's going to be, you want enough chance to be able to resubmit it. So we're working backwards from 10 days. With customization, that's 9 days. With documentation, that's 7 days. With edge cases, that's 4 days. So you have 4 days of buffer time. Part of that will be used to figure out the Slack App Store. Okay, that seems reasonable. Good. So on edge cases, which is what you're currently working on, as long as you limit that to 3 days, that you'll be on track.
That sounds good. Yeah, cool.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Neat. We talked about Microaquired. We talked about AcornChat. Kaggle competitions. How are those going?
Yeah, so there's one ending tomorrow at midnight UTC time. This is the one I'm on a team for. We are so close to the gold line, which is, so 1%, the top 1% gets gold. We are at like 1.2% or something. And it's very, very frustrating because we have done just about everything we can think of, and there's something that we're missing. Like, based on other people's comments, they're not doing things that are much different than we are, but we're just missing something that the top teams have. And it's very frustrating. Since it ends tomorrow at midnight, which is like 8 p.m. my time or something like that, and the things take about 9 hours to run, your submission has to have run before the deadline. So I only have tonight and then tomorrow morning. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to find anything significant. So we have a few things that we're trying basically, but yeah, it will be very frustrating if we get right to basically the bottom of the gold section. So yeah, this one has been kind of frustrating just because we feel like we're so close and we just are missing something. And yeah. Oh well.
Is this the sort of competition where the winners publish exactly how they did it, so you'll be able to see after the fact what you did? Okay.
Yeah. The first probably 10 places will publish something. Yeah.
Okay. I am very curious to hear what that thing is.
I know, me too.
If it's a thing I even can understand of what you're saying.
The worst case is, not the worst case. The worst thing is, it's probably something that's like, it could be something as little as like 2 characters. Yeah. As an example, I found a -1 out of place, and that bumped us just a little bit. And so another -1. And yeah, it can be something as simple as that, or it can be something like they trained a whole different model, which is like weeks of work. So yeah, we'll see.
I'm reminded of learning to code. I cut my teeth on Visual Basic, and I was learning all the stuff in coding, like the paradigms of it and the syntax and the process of the concepts of that you have to compile your code and then run it, and what a command line is and everything else. So overload of information, so much stuff going on. And I would get so frustrated when the error was like a missing semicolon. Because the errors back then weren't very good. It didn't tell you like, hey, you're missing a semicolon and it's here. Would you like me to insert it for you? It was like, compile error. And like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? So yeah, that's frustrating that it could just be a single minus sign out of place. That's that's what a puzzle. Gross.
Yeah. On the plus side, the other competition, the Snowwater one, that's the one that's ongoing, and I don't have to do anything. It just submits every week. I'm up to 6th place now. I don't remember if I said that on the podcast or not. And it caused a little bit of a stir in the message boards of that thing, because a lot of people fell. Like the first place person fell like 10 places or something.
Wow.
And the reason was because they get data every week. Mm-hmm. But some of the data takes a few weeks to come in, and so they got a lot of data for the first week, like just last week, and so it rescored them. And this is data that's it's a little bit different than the training data, and so if you overfit sort of to the training data, then you're going to fall a lot. So it looks like that's what the first place person did. And but yeah, so I'm up to 6th place. And if this is another one, so the top 5 get prize money. So if I finish in 6th place, it's almost worse than like 10th place. You know, so you're like yeah. So we'll see. But the person ahead of me in 5th place, they haven't submitted since February. So that is weird. So what that means is that the reason that they're so high but haven't submitted to February is they probably submitted all of their predictions for the whole till June. Like you could do that if you want. You could submit all 5 months of predictions then.
Yeah.
But the benefit of waiting is you get up to date data like that you can use to predict. So I'm hoping that that's what they did, and then I get into 5th place because they have some data that's out of date. That's my hope.
That's very exciting. Sounds like you're in the running. You're right there. That's a reasonable chance of bumping up. I love so much about the Kaggle competitions that you get rewarded for doing things the right way. There are these short-term benefits you can get, like you can get these vanity metrics of, overfitting to the publicly available data, and so you're really high in the leaderboard. But the actual competition is scored on who can actually solve this problem the best. So it's just such a clean example of like it's a meritocracy. It's like you can't cheat at it, and if you take shortcuts, it might look good in the short term, but you're going to get penalized for it in the long term. Like I love it. What a pure good game. It's a really cool way to frame a competition. It seems like there are very few ways to cheat, and you consistently get rewarded for doing things the correct way.
Yeah, that's one reason I like it too. And the times, I wouldn't call it cheating, but the times when there's like data leakage, which means like some aspect of the private data set is sort of leaked either through the public data set or over the internet or something. Mm-hmm. Right. So over the internet, actually using that information is cheating technically according to Kaggle rules. And there have been some high profile cases where people like have won, and then like 6 months later or something, it gets found out that they actually used public information they weren't supposed to. And they actually lost their place and everything. But yeah, the leakage is the other one, and that's why it's really hard to run these competitions, because the Kaggle team has to spend a lot of time making sure that the data they give you in no way tells you what kind of data is hidden in a test set. And when that does, that's called leakage. And it's completely accidental, and usually the top teams find it. In this essay competition, I think has been no leakage reported, and I don't think the top teams are using leakage based on their comments. I think it's purely they just found something better. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear what it was, how they did it. Neat. I think that's it. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. So
cool. I again have a very straightforward update. Not a lot to talk about. Like I'm consistently getting the work done. I spent 8 hours and 24 minutes working on FileInbox this last week, which is part of that's just because I haven't finished the poems for today. I think last week we finished the ones for today before I recorded the episode. So like just consistently, what are we on the 1, 2, 3rd week of doing this? 3rd or 4th, depending on how you count the signpost problem. I think that's right. It's just great. I'm just executing. I'm getting it done, marching forward, and it feels great. I think I had a lull on like day 2 or 3. I just felt sort of dejected and like not excited and like, here we go. But now it feels great. I spent the whole weekend just like chewing on stuff like, I can't wait for Monday. I can, I think this is how I'm going to format this code, or here's how I think I'm going to style these buttons. It's a lot of fun. I feel like I've unlocked something great. I want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. This feels really good, and it's solving a long-term problem that I've struggled with a lot, of how to push forward on like the one project I want to. I did notice though, in tallying it, there's a bug in my time tracker based on the time zone that I'm setting, like what's the beginning of a day. So that number might be slightly off, but I'm getting the work done. It's great. What else? Oh, the work I got done when I was summarizing for the entire week. On the scale of a day, I'm looking back at the work, like, I didn't really get that much done. I could have got a lot more done. And on the scale of a Pomodoro, especially, like 25 minutes, I'll have such high aspirations starting it, like, I'm going to get this whole thing done, and it's going to be functional till the end. And then at the end of the 25 minutes, I'll be like, that was 25 minutes? And then I'll tell you what I worked on, and they're like, well, I struggled with trying to understand how this API worked for the second Pomodoro in a row.
Right.
I still don't know how get user media works, but I have a little slightly better understanding of it. And then the next one, like, okay, well, I have the framing of how I would put it here, but it's not quite connected yet. And then the next one, I'm like, okay, that works, but it doesn't work in any of these other things. And it just feels sort of like a slog. But then on the scale of a week, wow, I got so much done. I built a form builder in a week, and that's not the only thing I got done. So like products like Reform, or like Airtable's form builder, or like the Google Drive form builder, where you can just drag and drop components and say, like, I'd like to ask someone a string question here, and I'd like to ask someone for their email here. I built one of those in a week, and I also did other stuff. That feels great. And then I'm also working on the show view. So like once you've built the form, when you're showing it to people, when you send them the link, showing them, rendering that out, and then actually being able to collect the data. So I like half built that, and I'm particularly working on a screen recording component, so that you can have a form asking other people to record their screen or their video, and then they go to this page, and there's just one big record button, and they hit it, and then they record the video, and then it goes off to your Google Drive or cloud storage or whatever. Because my friend Brian Richards wants to use this at the end of this month, and I'm gonna hit it. Gosh darn it! Like we're on track to be able to do that. So that's what I did, and you already know this, of course, because you've seen every single POM that I've done. But I'd like to pause quickly there. Any thoughts on just this idea of like getting stuff done on the scale of a POM versus a day versus a week? Have you felt similar things?
Yeah, I mean that's a little bit like why I was so kind of dejected about the idea in the middle of the week, and then when you see it all together, then you're like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's also why, so like Amy Hoy's and Alex Hillman's blog is Stacking the Bricks, right?
Yeah.
And they're talking about business, but it's the same thing. Like each little chunk of work you do is a brick, and before you know it, you have a house. And so, you just got to stack the bricks.
I'm stacking the bricks. I'm doing it. It feels great. And when I lose track of, when I feel dejected in the moment, I want to remember this moment of like, on the scale of weeks, you're getting a lot done. And it feels really good. I'd love to zoom out for a second, further than the scale of weeks, just on like my overall development plan for FileInbox. And I think I know what this looks like. I think on the hill chart that did 37 Signals invent that, the concept of a hill chart?
I don't know if they invented it, but they certainly popularized it in their Shape Up book. Yeah,
yes.
They may have
for anyone who doesn't know, there's this idea of a chart of complexity that looks like a hill. It's got like an up ramp, and then a peak, and then a down ramp. And the way that 37 Signals frames it in Shape Up, which is a book about project management, is projects have unknown complexities when you start them. So it's like you're going up this hill, and then you reach this magical point at the top of the hill where the thing's not done yet. There's still a lot of work to do, but you know what all the work is to do. So from there, it's downhill, and it feels a lot easier. And when you're going up the hill, you don't quite know how high the hill is, so you could be stuck in that stage for a while. But then on the downhill, it's very straightforward. It's much easier to predict how long the thing's going to take. I'm on the downhill with FileInbox. I feel like I've touched all the complexities. I know what all the pieces are. I just need to put them together. So here's how I think this is going to go. I think I'm going to finish the show view for a page and connect that to cloud storage. So I'm not syncing yet with Dropbox or Google Drive. I'm just storing it on my own servers. And that's going to be minimal functionality. Like I will be able to get people using this because they won't be able to sync with their Dropbox or Google Drive, but you'll be able to send a link to people, have them fill it out, and then you'll be able to get that data back just going through my website. I want to have a way for them to download a whole bunch of stuff all at once, multiple files, and I think that's going to look like on my serverless cloud function, take a list of, okay, here's all the different things you need to download. First download all those, then zip them up, then re-upload them, then give the person the link to do the zip, and then I can maintain folder structure and other stuff. For form data, I want multiple formats of form data. I want to be able to have that as a PDF or as a doc or as a text file. And then I think, so once all that's done, and that feels like it's, I don't know, 2 weeks away that I'd be able to do that. So probably actually 4 weeks away. But it feels like 2 weeks right now. And then I want to start getting current FileInbox customers to use this as a beta. So I want to include at the bottom of every notification email in FileInbox, hey, I'm working on a new thing. There's a new version of FileInbox. If you'd like to opt into it, go to this page. It'll automatically import your FileInbox page into this new thing. And then when you're sending this to people, send them fileinbox.app/whatever instead of .com. And then I'll play in there for a while, be listening to bugs people say. And then once I feel pretty confident that that's rocking and rolling, and I've rolled in all the other minimal necessary features of like doing the syncing to Dropbox and Google Drive, and if there's other stuff people want, or if there's edge cases I'm not seeing that it doesn't work on this specific browser, that's my time to iterate from there. So now I have FileInbox.app that's doing everything FileInbox.com is doing. Oh, part of that is billing. I need to be able to migrate over the billing system, but I think that's going to be straightforward. Now I have FileInbox.com on the Rails side, FileInbox.app on the new side. Now I think I migrate everyone over and all of their pages. And then I think keeping all the FileInbox.com Rails infrastructure in place, I think I switch over the domain name. So now FileInbox.com is pointing to the new serverless thing. And that's going to be an exciting day because something's going to break. It's going to be awful, but I will have it in my back pocket like, switch it back over. But if I do this correctly, that'll be a nice smooth transition. The pages will just transparently start working, even though they're working on a completely different architecture. And then I iron that out, and ironing that out is going to take, I don't know, a week or two. Some of that's going to be very exciting. Some of that's going to be like, holy shit, this very important customer, their whole thing is broken because of this thing I didn't foresee. That cores something, I don't know, or like iframes don't work the way that it did it. Yeah. But then I think I'm done, and then I think I'm on the new the serverless infrastructure, and then I shut down all the Rails stuff, and then I throw a big party, and you're invited. How does that sound?
Yeah, that mostly sounds good. Yeah. If you put something in the footer for people to migrate over, will you get enough people, like based on your customers, or do you have to provide some, like, at least like this is what you can do in the new beta that you can't do in the old thing, or something like that? Is there anything like that you need?
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like I have early adopters.
Okay.
That are using FileInbox. There's like, I don't know, probably 600 active people using it. So of that, like, I don't know, if I got 10, that'd be useful, who are wanting to push it forward. Especially, I can especially be advertising this to people asking me for new features that aren't on the existing thing yet, but are on the new one. That's a good vector. So I'll tell Rachel, my fantastic personal assistant, who is great and improved my life so much. Rachel, if you ever listen to this, you're great. Please never leave me. I can tell her, like, anyone who's asking for this subset of features, tell them it's not ready. It's not like production ready yet. Well, normal people don't understand what that means. If they want to try out the feature on the new platform that's not out yet, but you get early access to it, I think people understand early access, like things can be broken. Then go to this URL instead of the old one. And then I just tell Rachel, just replace com with app, and everything's going to work the same way for them. And then I'll just make sure that on the back end, like, if the serverless app gets a request for a page that doesn't exist, it'll copy it from Rails first. And I think that'll be a good vector of it. Like that'll get me 1 or 2 new users a week at minimum.
Yeah.
And then I also have a backlog of people who have asked for features that I can email all of them and be like, hey, this is ready, but in early access.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only other thing I would say is when you do the switchover, you may not want to mess with DNS, and just if you're running Nginx or something, you can just reverse proxy straight to the new domain, and then it's instant.
Ooh, that'd be faster to undo. That's a good idea. I use Cloudflare right now, so I think I could just do that in Cloudflare.
Yeah. Otherwise, sounds solid.
Cool. Oh man, this is happening. After all the time I've been talking about this, it's we're doing it.
All it took is some work every day.
Yeah, a little work every day.
Constant.
This is great. I feel like I want to send this series of podcasts to my kids eventually. Be like, this is what hard work looks like. This is what I'm trying to teach you how to do. Look at how lazy I was before. The only thing that changed is I did a little bit consistently every day, and then I got this huge thing done. And that's how we now have so much money and prestige in society. Because FileInbox, the serverless thing, that's when it really exploded. Cool. I just have a few other cool things that I want to talk about in my life. One of them is sort of an extension of what we talked about last week of like, I'm not getting a lot of other things done, but I've kind of stopped seeing that as a problem. Like, there's a finance tracking app that I made just for myself that has a bug in it. I realized I'm ignoring transactions from a statement that didn't happen in the core month. So there's like, and accounting months are different than normal months, which is infuriating. And I think I may have, for as long as this has existed, I think I may have been ignoring transactions that happen like in those 2 or 3 days at the end of the month. So that's bad. And I knew about it a week ago, and I was like, well, this is kind of a fun project to figure out how to parse this CSV better. So I'll get that done at some point this week. But after finishing the Palms for the day, I'm done with work. So I stop working. I go do better things. So I don't know. I think the solution to that is like, have one extra Palm that's like, all right, this is my fun 20% time fun Palm, and I can work on a fun project. But it's just been interesting to notice that like those things aren't getting done. I haven't pushed forward the flashcard app at all, which I was so excited about a month ago, and now it's just all about FileInbox. I've successfully shifted my enthusiasm and focus to the thing that I actually wanted it on. What are your thoughts on that? I feel sort of conflicted about losing enthusiasm for fun other projects that aren't FileInbox.
Yeah, like something that we talked about last time was stuff, life comes in seasons. And so like, in a few months, once you're sort of done with this FileInbox transition, then, maybe you'll find yourself with more, enthusiasm to work on other things. Like I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you feel good about what you're doing right now, I think that's good. Leave it at that. The other thing is like, it sounds like your finance app has been broken for years. And so like, maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. That's a good thing to keep in mind. This is a season. Like, I'm never going to be working on FileInbox technically for this much time again, probably, because I'm doing a complete recoding of this. And like the last time I did this was 7 years ago. So if I do it in the future, it's going to be, I'm recoding it with artificial intelligence or something. And like this is very unusual that I'm working on specifically development for this long. And I would like to continue this amount of time, but spent on marketing things. Yeah. That's going to be a transition that I'm going to need your help with, because what I'm going to want to do is just be like, I redid it. Next thing. And ignore like the whole reason I'm doing this and the whole reason I got a personal assistant. So I feel like I'm more free to be able to do marketing. But then, to scratch the development itch, I think I can swing back to fun projects. That is something I want to be doing consistently every day. Okay. Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah. I think you and I will hit that at about the same time, because as soon as AcornChat is in the Slack App Store and I have at least one person paying me, then that is exactly the time I need to like turn on marketing things. Yeah. And so we'll need to stop development, even though that's all I will want to do, and actually do, the selling of it. So
cool.
I think
it'll be much easier for me to force you to do marketing.
So and then I'll just turn around and give your advice right back to you.
Good. That's infuriatingly probably exactly what each of us need. How simple our minds are. Good. 2 other small things. I discovered this last week a TV show on Amazon Prime called Mrs. Maisel, or The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's great. It's so good. I love it. If you're looking for a good show, this is great. Very clever, witty, snappy writing. Very interesting characters. Very beautiful, like, choreography and the blocking of the way they do things, and it's just so tight, and there's no fluff, and it's really good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I watched. How many seasons are there? I think we watched 2 seasons, and it took a while for the 3rd to come out, and we actually never finished the 3rd one. But yeah, we liked it. Should go back and finish the 3rd one. Yeah,
there might be 4 now.
Oh, really? No,
I know there's at least 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
cool.
Good. Yeah, very good. Last thing that kind of ties into SaaS. I am learning how to paramotor, which for anyone new to this podcast, it's insane. You get to fly. You have a big wing above your head, and you have a big motor strapped to your back, and you just get to fly. Very few regulations, and it's really cool. And you don't need to get an instructor, but it's recommended. And I found one that was an hour away, and he has very strong political opinions and got kicked off of Facebook because he had this video with a shotgun. He like cocked the gun off screen and was like, liberals. And so at first I was like, let me find someone else to train from. So I found these guys in Austin. Austin is a very different city politically. I personally can see both sides of political arguments, most things. I was more turned off of him that, like, he's not the sort of person that I would usually be interacting with. So I found the guys in Austin, but then Austin's so far away. So I went back to this guy in Dallas, and things seem to be going pretty well. Like, I learned how to kite, and kiting is just like you are on the ground with the wing, and you're able to keep it in the air. And the progression is supposed to be you're mastering kiting, and you're supposed to do that for 30 hours. But some people do it in much shorter. There's some schools in Florida where you go in a week. It's an intensive week. You're going for 6 hours a day, and by like day 4, they have you up in the air on your first solo flight. And reading the book, they're like, it's really important to master ground handling. We know it can be kind of boring, but like the more time you spend on the ground, the better everything else is going to be. So I'm like, okay, great. That sounds good. I'm going to make sure I'm super safe in doing that. So the first few times I went to go train with this guy, the first time was just so great and so much information, and I got to learn I'm on the ground, and here's how the wing works, and wow, I got it up in the air, amazing, and I got to do it in multiple different ways. And then I was able to go home and practice that, and I did a whole bunch, 5 hours. And then I came back the next time. So it's like an hour drive out there and then an hour drive back. So I went out there, and for another 3 hours, I'm there kiting, and people are pointing out you're doing this thing wrong, and yes, I am doing that thing wrong. And that happened the next 2 or 3 times. I felt like I was actually getting stuff done, and now I think I'm really good at kiting. Now I've spent 50 hours doing kiting, and the last time I went, I drove an hour out there, and there were other people that the main instructor was helping. And so I just sort of went out of the field and kept kiting. And then the next thing I knew, it was the end of the day, and I had just kited the whole day. And I'm looking around I think I'm the best kiter in this group of kiters. And looking over there, that's a guy who's about to fly. I think I'm a better kiter than him. and he likes to have this meeting at the end of the sessions where he's like, all right, let me answer some questions, and sort of ramble about stuff and questions if anyone has any. And so I asked him hey, what's the timeline of how to get in the air? Because if I need more time doing that, that's fine. But I feel like I'm sort of in the dark here, and the progression seems to be that you kite, and then you do this. You learn more about how the motor works, and then you get a flight and go in the air. But I'm not. I don't even know. I'm totally in the dark. Every time I go, I'm bringing my whole set of stuff because I don't is today going to be the day? I don't know how this works. And he responded, when you're ready, and I decide when you're ready. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's not what I asked. It just felt kind of gross and like a power play, and I get he's ex-military, and so he has a very different conversational style to me, and is very hierarchical and very much about respect, and I get that, but also that's not how I learn. Like, I want to know what the very next thing is that I can be improving to be getting better at this thing. So then I can go home and like drill that, and then I can become the best at that thing. And now, okay, great, I can go on. But I don't know. I feel like I'm not getting enough instruction. So the where I've sort of landed is I think I'm gonna learn as much as I can on my own and try to do it more safely. So like I think the next thing to do is start doing the kiting, but with the big paramotor on my back. And then once I'm comfortable doing that, start doing it with the paramotor on my back and start it. And then once I do that, same thing, but I rev the engine a little bit in the one point where I would take off. And then once I do that, rev the engine a little bit until I just barely take off and then immediately land. And then keep doing that until I can fly. And I had a tie-in with software as a service. Oh, it's in onboarding.
Sure.
Yes. So it's like I'm viscerally feeling the benefit of knowing where you are in a process and the dejection of just feeling like you don't know where you are and you don't know what the next step is. And like, is this going to take months? Is this going to take weeks? Is he never going to get me in the air? The thing I'm looking like, I'm not trying to say I want to go up when I'm not ready. I just want to know, like, what are you looking for? What is the next step? So in software and designing onboarding, I want to have this story in mind of like, I don't want to just be endlessly leading people through this process of like, oh my God, I got to go and connect Slack now. How am I supposed to do that? Or in my case, like, I have to configure my email to receive these files or something. I want to be very clear about like, okay, here's an overview of the entire thing. And now we're going to go, so it's these 3 modules. And now we're going to go into module 1. And here's the 3 steps in module 1. Good. You completed the first one. You're 1/3 of the way done through module 1 of this bigger process. You did that quickly. You didn't need to do module 2. You're done with module 1. Now let's do the second one. And here we go. It's not knowing where I am feels bad in this process. So onboarding, very important.
Yeah. That's a great sort of parallel to your SaaS should not say something like when you're ready and I decide when you're ready and you're not ready. Right. Yeah, that's no good. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like he's not a great fit for your learning style, so I would try to find somebody else. This is one place, frustratingly, where Facebook is probably really good. I bet there was like a Texas Facebook paramotoring group. And you could probably find them and you could be like, who are the instructors in the Dallas area? And there's probably 20, I mean, maybe not 20, maybe there's 3. And then you could say, I'll pay you $100 a time for 10 times to watch me do each of these steps, Yeah.
Chris, how do you do this? That's a very good idea. Because you saying that, I'm reminded there is a really small group in DFW, so they'd be closer, that I heard from someone that just like operate out of a garage, but like that might be what I want. Interesting. Because there is this place in Austin. It's surprisingly rare to find people who do this instruction. Like I think there's 3 in the state of Texas. There's 4, because there's one in Corpus Christi, there's one in Austin, there's this guy an hour outside of Dallas, and then I think there's a really small one in Dallas proper that I just haven't gotten connected with. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
since you don't need a certification or whatever, you just need someone who's really good at it to watch you.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'll use this to have better onboarding on my own software. Cool. Chris, that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I'll see you next week. Goodbye.